They called it Project Sanctum, a file buried deep inside the CIA's Psychological Operations Unit. No one was supposed to see it. No one was supposed to even know it existed. Its purpose was not to spy on enemies or to destroy governments, but to understand and possibly control faith itself. For decades, this project remained hidden, but what you are about to hear comes from declassified reports, leaked recordings, and the testimonies of men who disappeared soon after they spoke. In the early 1950s, the United States was fighting a war unlike any before, not on the battlefield, but in the human mind. The Cold War wasn't only about nuclear weapons, it was about belief. Washington feared that communism would erase religion from the hearts of millions. The Soviets, meanwhile, studied how ideology could replace faith entirely. And so, somewhere in the middle, a secret race began to weaponize what humanity trusted most, its soul. Officially, it started as an offshoot of Project MKUltra, the CIA's mind control program. But Project Sanctum went further. It focused on how sound, rhythm, and vibration could manipulate spiritual perception. The hypothesis was chilling. If you can alter how a person experiences the divine, you can shape their loyalty, their choices, even their sense of morality. The experiments took place under the cover of acoustic research. Participants were exposed to layers of Gregorian chant, white noise, and electromagnetic pulses. Monks, priests, and ordinary volunteers sat for hours in sealed rooms, listening to repetitive harmonic frequencies. Some claimed they felt overwhelming peace. Others said they saw blinding light. A few broke down completely, reporting voices whispering their name from inside the sound itself. One declassified note from 1959 reads, "Subject reported communion with a higher entity, pulse irregular, tears, tremors, and prolonged silence." The next line is blacked out, entire paragraphs redacted, but one phrase remains visible: spiritual resonance confirmed. Most of these tests were conducted under undisclosed facilities in Maryland, Virginia, and one Catholic monastery near Montreal, the same region where MKUltra's LSD trials took place. Coincidence? Probably not. The scientists claimed they wanted to measure the bioemotional effects of sacred sound, but others saw it for what it really was, an attempt to manufacture belief. For centuries, churches have used sound, bells, choirs, chanting to inspire devotion. The CIA wondered if that same mechanism could be reversed. Could you create doubt instead of faith, fear instead of peace? They built machines to generate ultra-low frequencies designed to resonate with human emotion. Some tones produced calmness, others triggered panic. They called it the divine frequency spectrum. 7 scientists worked on the project between 1956 and 1964. 2 died in car accidents. 3 vanished entirely. The last surviving researcher, Dr. Edwin Carver, wrote in a personal letter, "We've touched something beyond science. It answers back." That letter was never mailed. It was found on his desk beside a turned-off recorder and a single burnt candle. Later documents show that the project evolved into what was called divine modulation studies, focusing on how group chanting could affect collective emotion. It wasn't about individual faith anymore. It was about controlling crowds. If one could reproduce the resonance of spiritual ecstasy artificially, you could move thousands, maybe millions, to believe anything you wanted. By the mid-1970s, Project Sanctum was officially terminated. But a 1982 Freedom of Information request revealed one strange detail: budget transfers labeled religious harmonics, continuation. To this day, no one knows what replaced Sanctum, but fragments of its research appeared later in military psychological operations and, believe it or not, commercial sound therapy. Some claim modern advertising borrows its principles. The same frequencies once used to trigger divine emotion are now used to sell products, influencing our desires without us noticing. If that's true, then belief, once the most personal thing in existence, has become the most powerful tool of control. A whisper, a tone, a rhythm repeated enough times can shape conviction. Faith, fear, patriotism, all can be tuned. One former agent described it simply. You don't need to change people's minds, you just have to make them feel that God agrees with you. In 1999, a tape surfaced labeled Sanctum 47. The audio was filled with distorted chanting and a faint human heartbeat. At the 23-second mark, a voice whispers, "It's not sound, it's prayer." Experts couldn't identify the voice, but when analyzed, the background frequencies matched the original Sanctum experiment logs down to the last decimal. Today, the CIA denies everything. No official records, no acknowledgement. But even the denials feel rehearsed, because faith, after all, is not something governments can afford to ignore. When people believe, truly believe, they become unstoppable. And every empire in history has tried to harness that power, from Rome to the Kremlin, and perhaps, even now, Washington. What if every sermon you've ever heard, every chant that calmed your heart, every piece of spiritual music on your phone was designed using knowledge born from Project Sanctum? Maybe that's why it was buried, not because it failed, but because it succeeded. Faith cannot be controlled, but it can be influenced. And somewhere in the archives of a forgotten agency, a file still waits to be opened. Its first page reads only 2 words, divine modulation. The rest is blacked out. Maybe Project Sanctum was never about power. Maybe it was about discovery. And maybe, just maybe, they heard something we were never meant to hear.